Welcome to Block 26 of our Celebrating the States Block of the Month. This is our version of the Vermont block. For this block, you will need 4 fabrics: a dark, a medium, a light, and an accent. I'm using blue for the dark, red for the medium, white for the light, and the paisley print is my accent print. From the dark fabric, cut 5 squares that measure 3 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. You'll cut the same from the medium fabric, 5 squares, 3 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. From the light fabric, cut 10 squares that are 3 1/4 inches by 3 1/4 inches. From both of the dark and medium fabrics, cut 1 square that is 4 1/2 inches by 4 1/2 inches. Bisect the squares twice, corner to corner, to get 4 triangles from each color. From the accent fabric, cut 1 square that is 7 1/2 inches by 7 1/2 inches. Bisect this square twice, corner to corner, to get 4 triangles. Draw a line from corner to corner on the wrong side of all of the light 3 1/4 inch squares. Put the light squares right sides together with the medium and the dark squares, and then sew a line 1/4 inch away from the line that you drew on the wrong side of the light square, or you can use your diagonal seam tape to do the same thing. If you drew the line from corner to corner, you're going to sew 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides. I love using the diagonal seam tape because it saves me a lot of time from having to draw all those lines. Once you've sewn all the seams on one side of that center line, make sure you flip it around and sew the same line on the other side. I like to use my Blade Saver thread cutter when I'm chain stitching pieces. It saves so much time. Once you've sewn on both sides of the center line, you can either go to the cutting mat and cut the pieces apart between the 2 lines of cutting, or you can just use the scissors. Once you've cut between the line on all 10 pieces, it's time to head to the ironing board. Press away from the light fabric or towards the darker fabrics. If you prefer, you could also press these open. I like to use a little bit of Mary Ellen's Best Press spray to help my pieces lay extra flat. Once they're all pressed, it's time to head back to the cutting table. Trim each of these half square triangle units to 2 3/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches. I like to press towards the dark fabric so that when I'm cutting these pieces down to their proper size, I can use my block lock ruler, put the channel in the back right on that seam, and get these trimmed to the exact size I need. If I've pressed my seams open, I just use my regular square ruler. The block lock ruler really helps my accuracy. Once they're all trimmed to 2 3/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches, head back to the sewing machine. Next, we're going to make large triangle units using the small triangles. Make sure the dark will always be on the left side. When sewing triangles together to make larger triangles, I like to start from a flat side versus a point of the triangle. There's less chance of the fabric being pulled down into the bobbin area. Use 1/4 inch seam allowances for the rest of the block. When pressing these triangle units, you will want to press from the back side and you will press the seams open. Sew the half square triangle units together to make flying geese units. The dark will always be on the left. Make 10 of these that have the dark on the left and the medium fabric on the right. If this is the first Celebrating the States block you've found, there are 25 other blocks available. Check out the playlist for all of the blocks. We will leave a link in the description below for the playlist. Press these flying geese units from the back side so that you can press the seam open. We hope that you will remember to hit the like button, leave us a comment, share with your quilting friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our state blocks. Piece the flying geese units together to get 2 sets of 2 sewn together and 2 sets of 3 sewn together. I highly recommend pinning these together to get the points to match so that you have the straight lines all the way up and down the units. Because we pressed that center seam open, it won't have very much bulk there, which should make it easy to sew together. Piece one of the half-dark, half-medium triangles to the top of each of these units. They should all point the same direction. Piece the 2 units that have 3 of the flying geese units together to make one long unit that has 6 flying geese and is pointed on each end. Press the short flying geese units in the direction they are pointing. For the longer unit, press the center seam open and then press the seams on each end towards the center. If these seams need some convincing to lay flat, try a little Mary Ellen's Best Press spray. That should work. Piece the setting triangles to opposite sides of the flying geese units. Press towards the accent setting triangles. Piece these large triangles onto opposite sides of the center row. I highly recommend pinning, although some of these seams will nest together to make it a little easier. Press away from the center row. Once you're done pressing, it'll be time to take it to the cutting mat so that you can trim it down to the correct size. Trim the block to 12.5 inches by 12.5 inches. I match the center point of my ruler with the center point of the block and make sure that the line follows the line of the block. I usually trim 2 sides at a time, the side and the top, and then I go around to the other side of the table and do the same thing, the side and the top. And with that, it's official. Our Vermont block is done. This block took a little trial and error. The first attempt was a little bit too small. This block only turned out to be 12 inches square instead of 12.5, and the corners were a little bit too thick. I had a little bit too much room in those corners. My second attempt was way too big, and this is my third attempt, and it turned out to be the right size once I trimmed it down, although when we put it into the block, it will cut off a little bit of these corners. I knew that this was going to be the best I could get without getting into really weird measurements, so this is what it is. And here's one I made out of scrappy fabric, just to see what it would look like. I think it would be fun to make a whole quilt out of this block. There would be some great secondary patterns that would show up if you used just this block in a quilt. We hope you will remember to hit the like button, leave us a comment, share with your quilting friends, and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy quilting!